5 levels are universe, multiverse, and metaverse, universe, and omniverse, 5. But then the last time I went up to 6 and 7, and now I'm starting to believe, in the 7 levels and 7 universes like Russian dolls, but also minimum of 10 dimensions, and we may want to discuss 13. But I don't know how. Do you get into realms and dimensions and places in space at all in the cosmos? Scientifically or with quantum entanglement or quantum mechanics? You know what I'm talking about, like your soul or your spirit. Okay.
I do.
See if you can talk about that.
Oh, wow. Well, quantum mechanics, quantum physics, and Buddhism, to me, are very much hand in hand. As a matter of fact, yeah, I do believe that some of the way early lamas, way back in the 8th century, they were some of the first quantum theorists, even, because it's very dimensional. And the things that they teach are just that, only in different words. So, I'm afraid for me to really go into great depth, I would have to use a lot of Sanskrit and Tibetan terms that would probably throw everyone off. So.
Well, maybe that could take years to go through all that, but we can have you back, sure, and when you can maybe write an article or 2 up, and we could post it on one of our websites, or even one called TGMRC2 Radio, and have discussions on that. But everybody has a different way they express themselves, and are assembling knowledge and communication of that. And some people call it the knowing or the awareness.
I would invite anyone who's interested to listen to a woman. She's on YouTube. Her name is Jean Houston, Jeanhuston. I believe she's PhD, and she's very much into the quantum side of it all.
Okay.
So she would be a better authority than myself, of course.
Okay, well, that's nice to help. We appreciate it. And it's hard to know how to do what we do and how to get people to work together. And one of the hardest things I've ever done is being in service to others. And the best teachers I've had is by doing something, even for my daughter's headstone. My daughter, my other daughter went out and she just cried today because she went out and the rain had messed up where we buried my other daughter, and the ground had fallen, and they took her flowers away, and she spent $80 to $100 just on little things so she'd know where Gigi was. It's in a big cemetery, and it's very, very nice, Holy Cross in Pensacola, but we're talking death and things, and it takes so much money to bury somebody, and she didn't want to be cremated. Now, I guess Buddhists can be cremated, but she believed the old way, and that her body would be, I think what they call it, bring up, even though we know Jesus can create anything at any time. But some people want their body remembered, and, it's just her choice. So she wanted to be buried. That was her wish, yeah. Mm-hmm. Carbon, because basically we say, the people with the funeral homes, they're going to tell you, well, everything's going to go back to carbon base. But, some people want to be cremated, and some want to be buried, some want to be put in a mausoleum. And so it's a personal choice, I guess. I don't know where we're going with all this in today's world. Can you talk about that, about cremation in India and the difference between, do all Buddhist people get buried, or do they all get eat up by the vultures, or do they get burned up, or what's the deal on that? Because, over here in America and then here in Florida, my daughter wanted to be buried, and now I put out on Facebook just to see if I could get some help on a headstone for her. I'm on retired and on a minimum income, which you and Tommy are too. But how do we help each other? It's hard to get people even to buy a headstone today's time, and they're not cheap, folks. We tried to put a little something. They pick it up. We got to go buy one of those big whatever stones, and my husband, and he gets a headstone from being in the Navy. A lot of them have where you bury them. They have where they mow, and they just put a little brass or something plate on it. But he didn't have a headstone either. But everything costs money. So we've learned maybe $500 to $1,500 depending for cremation, at $8,000 to $10,000 average. So Steffi fortunately had it. I didn't have it in savings. I live hand to mouth like most Americans. But she had it, so she paid it, but I'd like to pay her back. So I'm thinking I'm going to write books and try to raise some money. But even if we can get some help on the headstone, but I've never asked for money or been a fundraiser for things that I've never needed anything. I've always been able to provide for myself, and I helped make millions at one time on Earth, but those days are over. So anyway, so back to you on death and dying, and are you going to be cremated or buried, or do you have a choice? And does it rely on what you're brought up?
Yeah, I definitely won't be buried, but you have to understand that the sky burial, it was really cool when I was in India. I was in Dharamsala a long time ago when the Tibetan settlement just pretty much came. And anyway, so I'm hanging out in a hotel, I'm looking out, and I see all these vultures coming to the top of this hotel, to the roof, right? I'm like, oh, man, I know what's going on over there. Somebody's died and they've chopped them up. Sure as heck. So anyway, they do sky burials in Tibet. And the reason for that is this. Trees are very, very scarce because, and in India as well, they've taken a lot of the trees and cut them down for people to live and for sandalwood and this and that. So it's in India in particular, it's against the law to cut any trees. In Varanasi, where they burn the bodies and then they send people down the Ganges. I don't know what to deal with where they get that wood, but it's okay they do the there. But the reason they do the sky burials is because there's such a shortage of wood. Okay, that's the real truth. Okay, so myself, they're doing this new thing called green burials, where they take your body and they put you in pretty much the same position that the Tibetan burial is, where you're bound up with your knees up to your chin, and then your arms are around your legs, and then they put a burlap bag around you and put you in a hole, and then they put a tree on top of you, and then you're the tree. And I just think that's gorgeous, especially the way our planet's going these days. And then they could put a plaque at the bottom of the tree if they wanted, or not. But
do they have?
Yeah.
I mean, is that legal, or is that just in Hawaii? Or tell us about that, because that wasn't an option over here, I don't think, or at least we didn't know about it. So
really?
Half of it is having awareness and have it offered. Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
Oh, there's so much on the planet. So maybe there's many alternatives. The whole thing is being aware. Sometimes you have to know to be open-minded to other questions to get the answers. And a lot of times it's searching out. And I've always learned most people go by a need. If you have a need, you can try to fulfill it or MacGyver it, so to speak, in the poor land. And I've lived, I guess, very fortunate to have been middle class, but I think I was also part of the people back in the day trying to run a company and going green, but we tried to, go direct to other countries and cut the middlemen out, and now we're realizing that wasn't very smart. But now we've got stuff sitting on the, in the containers in both coasts, and, America doesn't need as much stuff as we used to. We need to send it back and just make our own stuff in America, but that won't work. That's not helping the world, So we got to figure the whole planet out, It's like, we can't afford to bury ourselves, but let's figure this out. So what's the tree thing? Give us an idea, because that sounds very New Agey or eco-environmentally friendly.
I honestly don't know what the cost is involved with that. I know that here in Hawaii we don't have soil, and so to bury someone here it's astronomical. So, but you can get cremated here for $1,000, and then now there's just opened a new a burial place where you can actually get, you can be a tree, or you might even be able to get permission to put yourself on your own land if you're doing that. But
I don't know. There's a lot of rules for that stuff. You got to buy it and all that. But,
yeah, I know there's a lot
okay,
of
so
that.
death and dying, a lot to think about. And I'm 67. I'm not getting any younger, folks. But some people had good companies with good benefits, and most of the people with money, they don't understand that people without money, they don't think about. I mean, I grew up with an accounting father, but he didn't teach me to play the stock market. I don't know about your dad, but nobody told me how the world worked with trade and commerce, and they didn't train me in school how to do bank accounts or how to learn how to invest money. And, back when I went to Hawaii in my 30s from the mainland and going through the government and Navy and all that stuff, that, I guess they assumed they'd bury us. We didn't think about who was going to bury us. I don't think most people do. It's
right.
We need to be educated about how to take care of ourselves, food, clothing, and shelter, and everything's getting outrageous. So, I don't mean to take this to a dark place, but this is a place that humans need to console each other and help each other learn and talk about, okay, do we have a soul? And if we do, why? And if we do, and does it matter whether we bury our bodies or not? And are we ET Starseeds? Do we come from the stars? In cosmic theory, we say we come from stardust. So, and a lot of people in the Christian world believe we're, the Bible, and that we come from, we're like the Anunnaki, or like gods, or we were formed in God's image. But yet now you've come through all that and decided that Buddhism works better for you, and the reincarnation. I've sort of blended all that together, all the world religions, because I've died and been on the other side.
The only thing is that Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, to me, and it's been said before, is more like a philosophy. It's not really a religion. It may look like a religion, but it's really not. We just really study the mind.
I guess I'm sort of blending all world religions together with science. It's coming out with spiritual science, but I know Tommy and I talk about the Ascension, but we call it spiritual science, and we're Universal Life Ministers just because it was easy to do on the internet and to just declare ourselves so we could, have wed people or call ourselves ministers. But my Ascension age was everything after 12/21/12, and Robert O'Dean or Bob Dean that I never went to any UFO conferences or anything. I don't even know if Tommy did or not, but I was in MUFON for a while. But from 1967 to 2017 is 50 years of investigation, being involved with government and clearances and all of that, and death and dying and out of body, and all of this is coming together. And I've got the spiritual science and the Ascension age, but what does that mean? I've got a soul, you've got a soul, Tommy's got a soul. How do we? I don't know if we can all agree or just agree to disagree that everybody has a soul, or we know we have a container. That's our body-mind. But each person, and this, Namgyal, with every person that's got a brain, and we're working on brain mapping, and all these neurons, how many universes do we have inside of us? Just each neuron could be a universe, a bubble in our brain. It's really interesting. So how do you deal with everybody could be a different universe, and everybody could have their own God or no God? It's all. Do you deal with free will and free choice, or live and let live, so to speak?
Well, that's
philosophy, right?
Crazy.
Well, philosophy. That's the key word.
Yeah. Well, it's like we go and we get trained and we study a strict regimen only to come out and throw it all to the wind. Absolutely throw it all to the wind and be as free as possible and as spontaneous as possible. And, It's funny. It's funny. We learn all this stuff to unlearn it, just to